The Many Origins of Scootaloo by Defender 2222, Chapter 23, Princess Celestia. What is this place? Twilight asked, looking around the dark wing of the library. Twilight had always prided herself on knowing every inch of the library, having studied it thoroughly while other unicorns were doing silly things like developing social skills. As he swore she had never seen this room before. Yet everything within fit perfectly with the architecture. The only main difference was that the great door sealed the wing off from the rest of the Royal Library, the fact that not a single window dotted the wall. This wing holds many banned texts, Celestia said softly, the glow of her horn guiding the way through the darkened shelves. Within this room are works that have inspired great crimes and tell of dark spells. Only a few eyes have glazed on these lost works, and it is sad that some ponies have gone mad reading the words written on the many pages that fill these cells. Eeeeee! Twilight squealed like a filly at a Justin Beaver concert. Yes, Celestia said dryly. Now then, I have brought you here because of your search for the origins of Scootaloo. You aren't going to tell me she is a toy, are you? Because Tidal and that crazy human have already tried that. Celestia blinked. Crazy human? Which one? The blonde one with the beard. He kept complaining about something called TV tropes. Ah, Discord's father. I had not realized he was around. I would have invited him for brunch. Twilight didn't have time to ask Celestia what that meant. Well, do not worry, my faithful student. I am not going to tell you Scootaloo is a toy. Celestia paused, lighting a candle and pulling out a large tome from a shelf. I'm afraid her origin is much darker than that. Celestia flipped through the pages of the book. You know much about the war with Discord, and how Luna and I used the elements of harmony to defeat him because he refused to pay Luna back style support. What you do not know is that there were ponies that sided with him. The reasons why are lost to history, and even I do not know their thought processes. But the fact remains that there were ponies that stood against us and with Discord. Wait, what do you mean, child support? After Discord was in prison, these ponies were sent to live in towns or districts where the air could be observed carefully. Celestia lowered her head. I wish I could allow them into Equestria, but they cannot be trusted. Even now that many years have gone by, and many generations have been born, it is safer to keep them isolated in crummy houses where their hate can fester, instead of bringing them here and treating them nicely. Twilight frowned. Can we go back to the child support thing? Because I've been hearing rumors. I am ashamed to admit this next part, Twilight. But you deserve to hear the truth. Celestia cleared her throat. The noble houses of all three tribes of ponies demanded that the traitors be punished for standing against us. And thus, every 10 years, we hold the Starring Games. The what now? Twilight said. She had been looking to see if there was a book on the Alicorn genealogy. The Starring Games. 2 tributes from each district are gathered, and all of them are pitted against each other in an arena. The winner is allowed to move to Equestria, for they have shown that they are strong and noble. What happens to the others? Do they go back to their districts? Well, parts of them do. Ew! Twilight scrambled back from her mentor in horror. You have mares and stallions fight to the death for sport? Celestia laughed. Of course not, Twilight. Do not be absurd. Phew! We use children. Welcome, my fellow equestrians. I am Fancy Pants.
And I am Prince Blueblood.
And welcome to the 99th Annual Starring Games. The 2 ponies were seated above a cheering crowd that had lined the streets of Canterlot in order to watch the festivities. Many of them were waving banners or holding up foam hose that listed the district they were cheering for. It was a festive atmosphere, and all the ponies were cheering and waving their arms, and generally acting like morons. Yes, it is hard to believe, but 10 years have come and gone, and it is such time to watch children brutally murder each other. I know I'm excited, and I'm sure all of you watching are too. And it goes without saying, we are horrible, horrible ponies. Blue nodded.
Indeed, but hey, at least we are jolly about it.
That is true. Fancy Pants turned to watch the parade of tributes as they rode down the street in parade floats, followed by giant balloons staged like Celestia and several marching bands. Oh, and the Shriners were there too. We can now see all the fillies and colts that will be fighting each other and coming down the street. This horrible parade to death. Now, the talk of the game is this young filly Scootaloo. She ruffles some feathers, no pun intended, when she bailed on her district and joined District 13. Many failed that she only did that to better her chances of surviving, since District 13 is already loaded with superstars.
That's right, Fancy Pants. Of course, it didn't help that she announced her choice via the controversial decision program.
Fancy Pants nodded. That is right. Oh, there is Scootaloo now. The orange filly in question was riding in a chariot, pulled by castrated royal guards. But, hey, at least they weren't fighting each other ponies for the pleasure of others. She was dressed in a brilliant black dress with peacock feathers and sequins lining the edges. Wait a minute. The royal guards were castrated? Yes. Time-honored condition. Cadence was quite upset when she found out. Why would she... Oh. There you have it, folks, Fancy Pants said as the last vote turned towards the stadium that would be holding the contest. Those are your tributes for the 1990 edition of the Starving Games. They may be wearing the finest garments.
Supplied by Rarity's Boutique in Ponyville, Blueblood said. Rarity's. If you could only pick one dress to wear before you went off to brutally murder colts and fillies, make it a Rarity.
Fancy Pants nodded. Yes, indeed, and I cannot stress enough. We are all horrible, horrible ponies.
Truly horrible,
Blueblood echoed. Some of us are more horrible than others.
I know that what you are referring to, and I will remind you that they never proved that the hooker wasn't already dead before she got into my bathtub.
That really doesn't make anything better, Prince Blueblood. In fact, it makes it a whole lot worse. Princess Celestia, I'm confused. Why, whatever about Twilight? Celestia said softly, flipping through the next page of the book, which depicted Scootaloo riding through the streets of Canterlot. You make it sound like these Starving Games are well known, but why have I never heard of them? I mean, I've lived in Canterlot my entire life. Oh, well, there's a perfectly reasonable answer to that. Spike slowly walked up to his friend, nudging her gently. They were in Twilight's bedroom, a mountain of books surrounding them. Twilight, don't you want to go outside and watch the parade? Moondancer said there would be tributes. I assume she meant tribute bands. Think they'll have a crazy Moonwalker tribute? Twilight shook her head in annoyance. Spike, I don't have time to worry about tribute bands and parades. I found this spell that turns blue shredders red, and I need to master it! But you don't even wear shredders. I don't right now, but you never know! Twilight huffed. That spell is an important one, no matter what Spike says! Celestia merely smiled. So, you're telling me that Scootaloo was a tribute in a game where fillies and colts killed each other for sport? Indeed, I am not proud of it. And I hope by the next set of games are scheduled to begin, Luna and I can get them outlawed. So, I'm assuming Scootaloo won the game since, she isn't dead. Well, Twilight's eyes widened. You don't mean she's a zombie, do you? Because Spike will never let me live it down as he is. Celestia laughed. No. It's just that Scootaloo won in a clever way. Scootaloo panted hard. It had been a grueling 5 days, and every muscle in her body had protested at some point. Her stomach felt like it was going to collapse upon itself, and her flank was covered in cuts and burns. She could feel the blood and mud drying on her hooves, and her rattled, sleep-deprived mind churned with memories of all the fillies and colts that had died playing the Starving Games. The battles had been brutal, especially after District 9 got those mech-walkers. Ah! And Scootaloo wondered if she would be able to survive her wounds, even if she did win. Only she and another pony, a gruff, rude Pegasus filly named Antagonist, remained. The two were staring each other down, waiting for each other to make a move. Scootaloo wore a set of wing blades, while Anne was sporting a nasty-looking mask that had a buzzsaw attached to it. You can't win. I'm going to kill you, then I'm going to skin you, and then I'm going to use that skin to make cheap imitation wallets! No chance. If I made it to a wallet, it's going to be a classy one, Scootaloo said sternly, never letting her eyes leave her opponent. I've already won. And how do you figure that? Because before we entered the arena, I bribed a ref. Anne only had a second to blink in confusion before a ref appeared from behind a bush and shot her in the head.
Well, there you have it, Fancy Pants called out. Using a little known move as cheating, Scootaloo has managed to win the 99th annual Starring Games.
Well, that was anticlimactic. Sorry, but that's how it went. So then, Scootaloo came to Ponyville? Of course. As her prize for being the best serial killer, Scootaloo was allowed to leave her district and live with civilized ponies. Civilized. Sure. It had been 2 days since Scootaloo had won the Starving Games, and now she was at her new home of Ponyville, meeting many of the fillies and colts that would be her classmates.
Hi, I'm Sweetie,
The white unicorn said happily, running over to greet the new arrival.
my mommy and daddy were cheering for you when you were slitting all those little ponies' throats. Want to be friends?
Scootaloo grinned a bit too widely. Of course! I would love nothing more than to be friends with one of the ponies who supported the brutal competition that forced me to murder innocent fillies and colts. All wits have left me scarred for life!
Cool!
Sleeveout screamed with glee. And that, Twilight Sparkle, is the secret origin of Scootaloo. The unicorn scratched her head. I don't know what to believe. I mean, you have this book that supports everything you said. Twilight looked down at the tome, flipping through several pages. Before Scootaloo's section, there were entries of all the other 98 winners of the Starring Games, each one regressing into detail until the first entry was a little more than a stick drawing. Twilight, I have never lied to you, Celestia said. You just withheld information and told me to go make friends when Nightmare Moon was coming. Celestia grimaced. Yes, but listen to me, my faithful student. You are like family to me. I would never lie to family. When you say family, I will now send you back to Ponyville, secure in the knowledge of Scootaloo's origins. Do you think of me like a daughter or a cousin, or as your niece because I'm really Luna's daughter? Goodbye, Twilight, Celestia said, her horn glowing as she sent the unicorn warping back to the Ponyville library. She managed to last 6 seconds before she burst into laughter. I take it the prank was a success, Luna said, trotting into the wing with Tidal and Cadence close behind. It better, with how much I spent, Celestia said. She closed the book she had commissioned to have created, and made a mental note to have it moved to her private study as a souvenir of her best prank yet. I can't believe you had them build a whole new wing in the Royal Library just for your gag, Cadence said. Luna nodded. In only 7 hours. That is quite a feat. Indeed, Celestia said. It cost quite a bit to get all this built in such a more amount of time. Equestria's bankrupt now, but at least I managed to pull a prank on Twilight. It is a family tradition, Cadence said. Celestia turned to Tile. By the way, I'm going to need to borrow about 10 million bits to cover our niece's debt for the year.
Of course you do. Tile grimaced.
Chapter 24, the final chapter. The last origin story. Scootaloo. Here comes the Pegasus, Twilight said, levitating the protein supplement pouch towards Roly-Poly's armor nest. Open wide. Twilight, that's really creepy, Spike said as he nibbled on his emerald. It had been little over a day since Twilight had learned from Princess Celestia about Scootaloo's violent past. While the unicorn was horrified by the actions the Pegasus filly had taken to survive the brutal game, the fact that Twilight now knew the truth helped ease her soul. Truth knowing always helped to ease the burden of pain, like finding out her grandma hadn't really died, but had been shipped north to live on a farm where she could frolic and play. She had been able to return to her studies and avoided crazy stories since then. Best of all, no tables had been harmed in nearly 24 hours. Hey, you didn't find it creepy when I did this for you, Twilight cherished in. Maybe I could get out those baby pictures. No! Spike cried out in panic. Roly-Poly wishes to see baby pictures of Big Brother Spike Dragon! I will short-circuit your armor so fast, Spike threatened, waving a spoon at the alien. Mama Sparkle! Mama Sparkle! The Dalek cried in fear, trying to roll behind the unicorn and hide from the enraged Bamboo Dragon. Spike, play nice, Twilight said, heading toward the door. Throwing it open, she blinked and then looked down, staring at surprise at her visitor. Hi, Miss Sparkle, Scootaloo said happily. I came to see if you had the new Where's Wanderer book. Twilight wrapped her forelegs around Scootaloo and gave her a tight hug. Oh, Celestia, you have no idea how great it is to see you! I need an adult! The unicorn frowned. Why, I am an adult. She set the Pegasus filly down and began to ramble. Listen,
I'm really sorry that every pony in Equestria made you fight and kill other little ponies for your own twisted enjoyment, but I swear I'm going to get them to outlaw the starving games so you don't have to train other ponies to murder each other. And I can tell from the way you are looking at me, you do not understand a word I just said. I need an adult! Twilight lowered her head, tears stinging in her eyes. Even the princess was screwing with me.
Scootaloo frowned.
I thought you were dating Rainbow Dash.
The unicorn looked longingly at her table. 20 minutes later.
Wow!
Scootaloo said in surprise, glancing over at Twilight, who had just laid out all the trauma she had gone through the course of the last few days. Her trauma? What about mine? I've been doing this for a month!
I can't believe everybody thinks that I'm that awesome. This is so cool!
Cool isn't the word I would use for it, Twilight complained. The librarian sighed in frustration, kicking a rock down the dirt path the two of them were walking down. Twilight had realized pretty quickly she would never be able to have a peaceful conversation with Scootaloo in the library, what with Roly-Poly and Spike playing loudly in the background.
I can't believe Princess Celestia pranked me. I mean, we always had a good relationship, built on trust.
Celestia looked at her faithful student's letter.
So Twilight found out that Nightmare Moon is being released. I could offer her support, maybe some of my guards to help her through Everfree, or I could just send her off to a Equestria Asylum, aka Ponyville. Dear sister, should thee not give Twilight Sparkle a gift for freeing we? You're right, Luna. How about a ticket to the Grand Galley Gala? For what now? Oh, you're right. You were on the move when I created that. The gala is the most boring event ever, and Twilight will hate it. Ooh, and I will give her one spare ticket and make her friends fight over it. Why would you do that? Because I'm bored.
We will accept thy answer. Shining Armor removed his helmet, sitting it down by his hooves. Far be it from me to question your decisions, Princess, but why are you sending my sister to fight a dragon when the entire equestrian army is at your beck and call?
Shining, have you met my nymphomaniac niece Cadence? She's double-jointed.
I retract my previous question. Celestia carefully held up her tweezers.
Hold still, Philomena. You need to look really pathetic when Twilight and her friends see you.
The Phoenix leads to pain.
Okay, so maybe we don't have the greatest relationship.
Scootaloo frowned. I think you're missing a bunch of them.
No, I'm not. Yes, you are. But what about leaving Discord out even though a bunch of fillies and colts were going to be around him and break his seal?
Twilight snapped. Scootaloo grimaced.
Okay, never mind.
The two of them continued on in silence for a few more minutes before the Pegasus filly spoke up.
It isn't that bad, Twilight. I think towards the end, every pony just wanted to take part in the fun. Heck, they probably thought you were in on it. But I wasn't. That's the problem.
The orange filly remained upbeat, even in the face of Twilight's present.
Hey, at least you got to hear some cool stories. I'm going to visit Rainbow Dash after this. Do you know where I could buy some wash-away green paint?
Quills and sofas. They're running a special.
Why are they selling paint now?
Why did they decide to sell sofas and quills? Twilight shouted back. The two of them walked along in silence for a while. Twilight was wondering just why fate had decided to make her its whipping pony, while Scootaloo was already planning on buying a Mare-de-Well costume for Nightmare Night. They continued down the dirt road, but instead of forking left toward Ponyville's main street, Scootaloo turned right.
Scootaloo, where are we going? The filly grinned. I figured since you went to so much trouble to find out about me, that you deserved to know the truth. Really? Twilight whispered in awe. You're really going to show me all your secrets? Where you live? Your secret powers? Your real name? I get to finally know all of it?
You might want to lower your expectations a tad. Author's note. That goes for you, readers, too.
Yes. After another 20 minutes of walking, Scootaloo had stopped and turned to face Twilight. Well, this is my house. Twilight had been living in Ponyville for over 2 years, and come to expect certain oddities when it came to houses. After all, her friends lived in an old barn house, a boutique that looked like a circus tent. Technically, it's a carousel. A rustic cottage filled with animals, a pink bakery, and a clown mansion. She herself lived down in a hollowed-out tree. She also stayed in a royal castle, seen pony who lived in houses that shaped like different suites, and even been to the sandcastle that Lord Tidal and the Capricorns of Maritime Bay called home.
Of course, most sandcastles didn't have the heads of door-to-door sales ponies mounted on spikes out front, but nothing had prepared her for Scootaloo's house. It was a two-story log cabin, built from trees gathered from the Everfree. There was a small bed of wildflowers out front, and a porch swing swinging next to the door. A short sidewalk curved away from the house and led to the side of the road, where a plain red mailbox sat. In a word, it was ordinary. Pretty cool, huh? Scootaloo said with pride. Twilight blinked. Wait, is this just the front house? Uh, all houses have fronts and backs. How else would the roof stay up? Twilight shook her head. No, I mean, the house is a fake, right? You walk up to the door, press a secret button, and it takes you down to your hidden subterranean house with spike assets and fast cars and doomsday weapons, right? Nope, Scootaloo said with a smile. But I'll mention that to my dad. I bet he could whip something up. Before Twilight could respond, the filly started racing towards the house. Mom, I'm home! Scootaloo? A Pegasus, the color of fine red wine, stepped out of the house, her large wings twitching slightly as she made her way towards her daughter. Scootaloo's mom looked to Twilight like a blend of Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy. Her long, powdered blue mane hung nearly down to her hooves, and her slim, sleek body spoke of a mare who worked hard to keep herself at her peak. Scootaloo's mom turned to hug her daughter, revealing her flank to Twilight, which was adorned with a cutie mark in the shape of a black cocktail dress with several cameras around it. Hi, Mom, Scootaloo said, shrugging off the saddlebag she wore. I got my book and Twilight Sparkle. That's the librarian, and the unicorn that is looking at us like she expects you to be a robot or something. Wanted to meet you. The mare blinked before flashing a smile that rivaled Celestia's sun. Well, it's great to meet you. You're Sweetbelle's mother, right? Twilight shook her head. No. Her genealogy was screwed up enough without making her Sweetbelle's mother. Mom! Scootaloo whined. You're thinking of Rarity. It's she's Sweet's sister. The maroon mare laughed softly, her lyrical voice bouncing about the trees. I am so sorry. Scootaloo tells me so much about her friends that I get confused all the time, what with all the names. The mare held out her hoof. My name is Graceful Wind. It's nice to meet you, Twilight. Nice to meet you, too, Twilight said, giving the Pegasus a weak smile. When the two Pegasi saw her confused look, Twilight rubbed the back of her head. Sorry. You're just not what I expected. And what were you expecting? Grace asked politely. Aliens, superheroes, time travelers. Twilight noticed the look she was getting and lowered her head. A blush, nearly as red as Grace's coat, coloring her cheeks. Sorry, your family is kind of the talk of the town right now. Grace nodded. Doesn't surprise me. She led Twilight down to the house, which was decorated to reflect the forest that sit nearby. The chairs and couches were made of a fine oak and soft cushions on them that made a pony want to curl up and read a good book in front of the fireplace, lit or not. The walls were decorated with paints of ducks and a bear trying to grab a fish from the river. I don't suppose you recognize me. Sorry. Should I? Grace laid down on the couch. Scootaloo joined her, and playfully rubbing her head against her mother's large wings. Depends on what circles are you a part of. Back in the day, I was quite the talk of Canterlot in Manhattan, thanks to Photo Finish. Something clicked at Twilight's head. Wait a minute. I do remember you. You're that model. The one that was the face of Sweet Sense's line of perfumes. My mom loved those. Grace chuckled. Yes, that was me. And before I was a model. The mare looked up, a slight smile forming as she looked back on her past. Oh, you would not believe the places I went, or the ponies I saw. I must have traveled from one edge of Equestria to the other. Wow. I can't believe I'm meeting a famous model. I mean, my friend Fluttershy was one for a while, but Twilight shook her head, cutting off her own ramble. Do you mind I ask how you ended up living here? Grace shrugged, tickling Scootaloo with her wing and making the filly squeal. I'm sure your friend Fluttershy could tell you that being a model isn't all fun. Even those of us who have it as a special talent can find it rather boring. About 14 years ago, after a show in Canterlot, I decided to take a walk and got all turned around when a big, ugly stallion bumped into her. The three turned as an earth pony,
who was just a few inches taller than Twilight and Grace, walked into the room. His coat was gold, and adorned with a saw and hammer cutie mark. His crimson mane was cut so short, it barely stuck up past his ears, and his tail was tied up with hemp rope, much the same Applejack's was. He was not ugly, Grace protested, reaching out to place a kiss on the stallion's cheek. And if he was, I still love him anyway. Lucky me, the stallion said. Come on, no munchy stuff, Scootaloo complained. Grace turned back to the lavender mare. Twilight Sparkle, this is my husband. Quick cut.
Nice to meet ya,
Quick said. His accent had traces of the drawl that Apple family possessed, but was tempered by years of living with Grace. In fact, while Quick was more talkative and not as big as Applejack's brother, there was the dependability Big Mac had about the stallion that instantly made Twilight comfortable. Honey, I think the oven's about ready to ding. Oh! Grace quickly took the air, Scootaloo rolling off the couch and landing on her host. Twilight, I'll be right back. Scootaloo, despite having been displaced by her mother's getaway, was no worse for the wear and seemed to be bubbling with excitement. Hey, Twilight! You want to see my dad's workshop? If it's okay with him.
Perfectly fine,
Quick Cut said, leading Twilight through the house, toward the back door. So, Scootaloo, I didn't realize you were half Earth Pony.
Half nothing,
Quick said with utter pride, leaning down and letting his little girl scramble onto his head and slide down to ride on his back.
Scootaloo's all Earth Pony.
Twilight blinked. But the wings. Scootaloo beamed. I think that's so cool. I get all the strength and endurance of an Earth Pony, but I also get little wings so I can move really fast and hover. Huh, Twilight said, realizing that being an Earth Pony would explain how Scootaloo managed to survive the CMC. Mr. Cut, I had to ask, why haven't we seen either you or Graceful Wind in Ponyville?
Quick chuckled. Mostly because we're homebodies. Grace got tired of traveling after the days as a model, and I've never been one for big city living.
Twilight's brow furrowed. No pony had ever called Ponyville a big city.
Besides, Grace and I are busy with our jobs, so we rarely have a chance to get out of the house, even if we wanted to.
What do you do? Twilight asked as they stepped outside. The yard was large and spacious, and Twilight spotted a jungle gym, a swing set, and several ramps for Scootaloo to practice her scooter tricks. The back of the yard was dominated by a large barn that was as nearly the size of the house.
Grace works as a consultant for modeling firms. They send her photos of potential models, and she helps them figure out if the girls have the right look and which photographer will work best with them.
Twilight frowned. Wait, get mail? Why doesn't Derpy Hooves know you then?
Derpy?
Scootaloo fielded that question. She's the mailman for Ponyville, Dad. Remember when I told you about her daughter Dinky?
Oh, right. Quick said cheerfully. Technically, our area code is in Trondheim, so we get our mail from there. I'll pay you in the flank, but what can you do? At least we're close enough for us to Ponyville to get Scootaloo into the elementary. Quick opened the door to the barn and led Twilight inside. Now, as for what I do, I think it's pretty obvious. I'm a carpenter.
You do more than that, Dad, Scootaloo said with pride. My dad makes furniture for all the race ponies in Canterlot and Maine-Haven.
Well, not all of them, but a good number. My pieces are quite in demand, which is why I really can't take a day off. Quick glance at his daughter, though I think I'll get to spending more time in Ponyville soon.
Really? Scootaloo said. Sweet! Scootaloo began to talk about all she wanted to show her dad when he came to town. Why's that? Twilight asked.
Quick reached over to flick on a light. Mayor Merrick mentioned me to build a bunch of furniture. Darndest thing. Never had an order for the same piece before. The lights came on, and Twilight's pupils shrank to pinpricks as he gazed upon the workshop. Filled from one wall to the next was her mortal enemies. Tables! I don't know why all of them were broken in Ponyville. Bang! Scootaloo looked down at Twilight's unconscious form.
She fainted!
Quick nudged Twilight's foreleg. She did. Something must have spooked her.
Okay, Everypony. Who wants brownies?
Grace called out. The end?
Well, that was an interesting ride. I mean, I guess we all had a lot of fun. Well, now it's time for another review.
In another place. At another time. At another universe entirely. Oh, no, narrator. You promised me I get to go home after this. I lied. Oh, F you. Gah! The mare sat up in bed, blinking her eyes as she adjusted to the darkness. Her husband grumbled and reached over, flicking on the light. Moony, what's wrong? Nightmare Moon shook her head. I had the strangest dream, Discord. Twilight was going around wanting to find out the secret origin of Scootaloo. You don't say, Discord said, snapping his fingers and summoning a pair of reading glasses. Yes, all the origins were parodies of famous movies and TV shows. And Cadence was insane, and you were a statue. Your dad was hanging out with this gray mare with red eyes. Celestia was ruling this kingdom, and all any pony did was talk about friendship. I had been trapped on the moon for 1,000 years. Discord chuckled, wrapping an arm around the night goddess. Sounds like some dream. I had one the other night that I was an innkeeper in this crazy little town in Vermont. Nightmare just stared at him. Go to sleep, Bob. Discord. Whatever. Nightmare clicked off her lamp, as did her husband, and the two settled back into bed. Discord and Nightmare Moon looked at each other. The baby's up, Discord said dryly. I got her, Nightmare said, pulling herself out of bed and trudging to the nursery. Stepping inside, the wicked Alicorn rolled her eyes in good humor as her little foal sobbed. It's okay, Twilight. Mama's here. The Twilight Sparkle gurgled as her mother lifted her up, grabbing a bottle from the mini-fridge they kept in her room. The foal's little lips latched onto it, and she happily suckled as her mother rocked her back and forth with her magic. Come on, let's have a bedtime story, Nightmare said, sweetly pulling a book from the shelf. This one is called The Amber Apple. Nightmare cleared her throat, but before she could begin, she spotted something lying on the ground. Whoops! Sending out a tendril of magic, the dark Alicorn grasped the orange Pegasus doll and gave it to Twilight, who promptly spat out her doll and cuddled her dolly closely to her chest. Can't have a story without Scootaloo, can we? Twilight cooed in agreement. The end. And I've got to say, despite me seeming like the insanity was torturing me, this was one hell of a ride. And I mean that too. I loved every moment I went through with this. I almost hesitate to say, but I think I can officially make this claim right now. This was probably the most voices I've ever done for any live read in existence I've done so far. And I mean it. The cast has just been large, and I've done multiple different voices. I hope that on these live reads, it came through how many times I had to change a voice. Of course, the reason why I went with my normal speaking voice for Scootaloo's dad was because I figured by that time it was going to become normal, and it just had to be pleasant. But as for the rest of the fic, there's so much to say about it. When I started off reading, I knew that I would be getting to the review soon, and I started trying to figure out to myself, what was I going to talk about? I mean, it's a parody, it's a comedy. I couldn't really talk about the in-depth character struggles, the heartwarming moments, or how the different character fields play off each other, or even the main six interactions, because I knew where a lot of the story was going to go. But around chapter 3 was when I came up across with exactly what I was going to talk about and what exactly I was going to review with this. Because it's something that Defender has done pretty well. The comedy. I mean, even when it comes to the parodies, they're less of what a lot of modern comedies do, or even some bad internet reviewers do, and go, hey, remember this? This happened. This is a reference. This is a gag. And instead, actually takes the scenarios and puts Scootaloo in them, and even comments and jokes about them. It makes it quite hilarious, and doesn't make it so that I feel like I'm just getting, hey, remember this, remember this, remember this, and more like, hey, this was a little weird, but a little fun. Want to comment on it? Or, this is what happened, but what do you think would happen if, say, coming from a Superman fan here, Jor-El was a little bit is nuts? Or, what if Rita was this? You know, that type of thing. And yes, the Power Rangers chapter was one of my favorites. Because, as you know, people might know, I'm a huge Sentai fanboy, so it was heaven for me.
I loved the Doctor, and well, there was just so many awesome bits. But that was another thing about the comedy, even when it came to some of the more parody chapters, was that none of this ever felt like it was insulting or the guys were looking at you going, this is stupid, and you should feel bad for liking it. Even when it came to the ship, it was just generally done in a fun, tongue-in-cheek moment, and I can laugh. Sometimes the worst parodies can come off as insulting or mean-spirited. This wasn't. This was just looking at a premise and having a good chuckle with it. And as long as you're with and I think Pinkie Pie said it best. A prank is no fun if nobody's laughing with you. And I'm with her. Sometimes the joke is better when you are in on it and you can laugh with the writer. Kind of like with the whole entire chapter devoted to custom molds. I'm a toy collector, so I can understand the aggravation when it comes to the custom molds, or when you're trying to do a scene with a figure and they just don't able to mesh well. Trust me, it's hard. Another thing I loved about this was the way some of the punchlines came through. I'll go with two here. The first punchline, of course, was with Lyra's chapter that I liked. Come on, let's face it. The moment Lyra started telling that sob story about Scootaloo being a mask girl, you saw what was coming. I knew what was coming. We all knew what was coming. It was going to be something weird and insane, and it was going to be a fun little gag. Heck, I bet we all could probably guess that, yes, it was going to involve Lyra loving hands. Speaking of which, fans of the Luniverse, I should let you know, it's kind of weird doing an insane Lyra after I was serious as Lyra for so many chapters. And finally, Scootaloo's story. Come on. It does ask yourself, listeners, when I started this, how many of you guessed at the very beginning that Scootaloo's origin was going to be a very humdrum, chilled out, plain Jane, no frills ride origin story that really wasn't going to be anything spectacular? She was going to have normal parents. She was going to live in a normal house. We knew that punchline was coming. But, however, just because you know when a punchline is coming doesn't always make it a bad thing. All depends on how you tell it. Sometimes waiting for it, or when you know it's coming and it stalls for just a little bit, it gives you a chance to laugh at it the moment it does come, because then it becomes unexpected. Sometimes a theory about comedy can come from the element of surprise, the one that makes you laugh about a certain scenario. Kind of like saying, oh, well, I know Curly's going to get hit in the face. I know Curly's going to get hit in the face. Well, oh, wait, he's not going to get hit in the face with the pie. And then later on, it happens. This is why brick jokes can work so well, because then they give you the joke, and you leave it for a bit, but then come back, and the joke finishes. I mean, I know I'm not speaking as a complete theory on comedy, but that's what I feel like good comedy is when it takes these obvious punchlines and gives you a chance to relax and wait for it, and it makes you laugh about it when it comes, because it's unexpected. You may know when it's coming, but it's the when and how you get there. Kind of like when you watch a movie before, or you know how a movie or a story ends, but it's the destination. The other thing that I feel like this fic did really well, and this is something important to me when it comes to comedy, because it's something I feel is important to all stories, is the characters. Yeah, I know. Chaos was over exaggerated, Shining was over exaggerated, etc., etc., etc. But when it came to those exaggerations, they never truly were so exaggerated that I didn't feel like I didn't know these characters. See, there's a difference between character exaggeration for the sake of comedy and making them unrecognizable. It's a thin line, but it's there. And I think Defender straddles that line pretty well. straddles nothing. He rides it and holds his cowboy hat and goes, "Yell, yell, yell." But he holds that line pretty well. Cadence, despite being a nymphomaniac, is still very loving and caring towards Twilight. Shining Armor, bordering on the levels of insanity, is still a caring, by-the-book big brother. Celestia may be a troll, but we still see the mentor issues of her. And, most importantly, Twilight. She may be our straight mare, but she's still reacting like any pony would to all this weirdness, to all this insanity, but deep inside, we still see her being very analytical, trusting of her teacher, and trying her best to cope with all these weird situations. And surprisingly, I was able to find a sort of heartwarming moments when it came to Twilight's stories with some of the main six. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I did. Mainly because theirs, quite frankly, was the least attempting to drive Twilight insane the most. Yeah, they were pranking her, but I think it said a lot when, after Rarity's prank, the first thing Pinkie Pie did was rush off to meet Twilight and go, "Hey," when she thought that Twilight had finally lost it, she thought it went too far. Pinkie Pie immediately went to Twilight and said, "Hey, it's just a prank. I'm sorry we went too far." I can only imagine many hugs were placed. And that was kind of interesting to me that the main sixes all seemed to be the ones that drove Twilight the least insane. Like, she almost kind of enjoyed spending her time with her friends and listening to their stories, moreover than the insane ones like, say, Cadence, Lyra's, Titles, Defender 22s, Discords, and so many others. See, I think that's another good sign of a good comedy is when you can go back to some of these jokes and laugh again. I've read this fic over 2 years ago, and the comedy still gets me, even though I knew the ending and I knew where some of these gags were going to go. But I was still laughing because I knew how to do it. I guess, as I said, the important thing is the characters. See, somebody once posted a theory that comedy is all about suffering. But we have to care about that suffering before we can enjoy the comedy. I always like to take the stance of one of my favorite animators of all time, Chuck Jones. He said that Bugs Bunny always had to be pushed in order to do what he does. In other words, he always had to be the guy who stood up against the bully. Now, some might say, well, this is just to make us root for him because he's the underdog. Oh, he's facing off against the bullies. He's taking them out. No, he's doing that because it's helping us relate to him. We laugh at him because, well, we laugh at the guys getting their butts handed to him because now we're rooting for Bugs, and now he's a character that we sympathize with. We want to root with him because we like him. Why do you think the worst Bugs Bunny cartoons are always the ones where he's antagonistic? Oh, he's angry at the tortoise, or oh, he's angry at such and such, or he's angry at the mouse. To me, those were always the most boring and least funny of the cartoons. If I had any real complaints about this whole entire thing, Vic, it would be okay. I know I got a few here. What are they? What was my complaint about this, Vic? I know I got something in here. Actually, I can think of very few. Very few. I mean, yeah, sometimes some of the jokes don't always work, but that's comedy for you. Sometimes a joke will work and sometimes it won't. And I think it says a lot when we have an OC like Tidal who's Celestia's adopted father, who's taking care of her, and I fell in love with him. Okay, I'll be honest. I didn't fall in love with Tidal from this fic. No. That comes in the sequel, God Squad, where he became this bloodthirsty maniac that likes to shoot everything in existence. I love him for it. But this one, but knowing what I know about him now, As opposed to then, I really fell in love with him coming back to this. Because, well, first off, he's voiced by Keith David. Okay, me doing a Keith David impersonation. What do you want from me? And second of all, him being this very big, serious, dark, demented, slaying, killing, mass murdering stallion that, in a way, was also kind of lovable and caring. I love a good contrast like that. Well, that was the story, and now, huh? Did somebody just break into my feed and
Hi there, martial art free user.
Defender, what are you doing here? I normally don't have the authors come in like this.
Oh, well, I just saw that you were finishing up the review and finishing up my story, and I was wondering if you had any idea of what you're doing next.
Well, of course, there's the usual universe chapter, and then I was thinking about doing your Christmas story.
Oh, really? And what about after Christmas break?
Oh, I had a few ideas.
How about Faith and Doubt?
Faith and Doubt?
Yes, my very serious drama, Faith and Doubt, and the other one, you know.
Oh, those two. Nah.
You're not thinking about doing them?
Nah. Those things are for pack mules. I'd rather read excellent fanfics, like, say, Fallout Equestria, or, something by, say, Darth Link 22, or maybe even, I don't know, Penstark or something like that. I would never be caught dead reading such a fic like that with those. What do you take me for? I'm not insane. Defender, was that?
Did you just call my fic for pack mules?
Maybe not.
One should never, ever mock an author with a Gatling laser.
You have a Gatling laser? Trixie, why don't I have a Gatling laser? We can't afford it. Defender, it's just a joke. Maybe one day I will read Faith and Doubt.
You got exactly 5 seconds to start running martial art fruit user boy.
5 seconds? 4? Well, guys, 3. Well, I try to survive this 2. Here's the trailer for the 1. Next story for Lumiverse. Yay! Take it, Trixie! Next time on the Lumiverse. Oh, aren't you a cute little thing with your little beady eyes and little wings? Pinky, come here for a sec. Isn't he adorable? Oh my gosh, no, stay away! What seems to be the problem? Keep it away from me, keep it away! What? Boop! Oh, well, you look at that. Now there are 2 of them. Oh gods, it's starring. There's only one thing to do. Instrument time! Instruments? Why do we need instruments in... Oh, look, now there's 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 14... Oh, sweet Luna, no. Help! Next time on the Luniverse, ill communication. It's certainly going to be a buggy ride. Ah!
See you then.